Hello, folks. Welcome to Between Awesome and Disaster. This is your host, Will Carey. I appreciate you folks tuning in. I hope you're doing well, staying safe, taking care of those closest to you, and being smart as you do things. I appreciate everybody coming back. I do apologize that I did not have a new episode for you last week. I was coming off of my road trip in California with my wife, which was incredible. It was a really good time. Got to see a lot of cool things. Got to have some new experiences. Never spent a ton of time out in California. I've, of course, seen California depicted many times across most of my entertainment, but it was I really enjoyed my time out there. I don't think I could ever see myself like living in California full time. I just think I'm too wired in and dialed to how much I enjoy living in New York. But I definitely want to spend more time out in California playing shows, seeing cool people. The amount of compliments I got on my punk rock shirts out in California, I never get that amount of people wanting to chat with me about my Blink-182 shirts or my Rancid shirts. So that was kind of fun to experience. But I would love to do more comedy out there. I was able to, and you'll hear him on the show in a few weeks. I had a great stand-up set at the Good Night in North Hollywood in Los Angeles at a show run by my friends, my friend Ethan Stanislawski and lots of my new LA comic friends. So that was a super fun time, and I want to thank Ethan and his producers for having me on. And then I also am very excited to get into our episode for today. So if you caught the feed last week, you would have heard a re-release of my episode with Marc Juliano from the Philadelphia pop punk band Goalkeeper from 2020. That conversation took place before the release of their EP Life in Slow Motion, as well as the subsequent acoustic version of the song Black and Blue from that EP. And since then, they've done They've done a lot of touring, national touring across the United States, and now we are on the cusp of a lot of new music from Goalkeeper. In fact, if you're listening to this on the day it's released, their newest single, Sooner, was just released this past Friday, which includes a very cool music video with Zach from the band Friend Circle and his girlfriend. So make sure you check that out and download Sooner wherever you get your music. And we're not too far off from a full length album from Goalkeeper, which I, as a fan of the band who has now become friends with the band, am very excited about. So I thought it was a good time for the band to come back on the show. So I'm talking to Marc today, and we're just going to talk about Sooner and a lot of guitar related things for the new record. And then as more things are released this fall, I think Cody and Ryan from the band will be making their second appearances on the show as well, I hope. So you guys are in for a treat. I love Marc. My band has been fortunate enough to open for Goalkeeper in New York a few times now, and I love seeing those guys play. So I think you guys will enjoy this. If you enjoy listening to this podcast and you're not a fan of Goalkeeper, go check them out. Their EP Life in Slow Motion that came out recently is amazing, as well as their first EP, Bad Times Don't Last Forever. So make sure you check that stuff out. And thank you guys again for being here. And let's talk to Marc from Goalkeeper. Of course. I mean, I almost feel a little silly asking that because, we were complete strangers 2 years ago, and now I feel like we're pretty good buddies now.
Played some shows together.
Yeah,
And have
which if
talked a
I can
lot.
Yeah, which if I can say for me is a total thrill because I was literally just a fan of your band, and then to get to play with you guys when you come through New York is very exciting for me personally.
Well, we like playing with friends, and what I was saying to you at the last show, we always appreciate people wanting to play our shows because if anything, there's like a surplus of concerts happening nowadays, and for bands to be able to play, and so when they're choosing to play their area on like a Tuesday where they could very easily wait till like the Friday or Saturday and have more people come out or just make it more special. In any way, it's like, okay, yeah, we really, really appreciate because
Uh-huh.
otherwise we wouldn't have that show, especially on those harder days where not a lot of bands like want to play. Um, yeah, like that's what I tell bands. Like we're at the place now where if someone comes in on tour on a Monday night and says, "Hey, can you play Philly?" Like, no, we can't. Like we have to keep it at a really spaced out consistency, just so we don't oversaturate the area anymore.
Right. You guys are now like, and it's very cool to see that happen since the 2 years we talked last. You guys are now at that point where you you have to be more selective about when you play your hometown, because otherwise, like when you do like the big holiday show or whatever, you want that to be like an event. It's not like where Bright Ugly is at, where we're just sort of like any gig or any exposure is helpful to us right now.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of like the business thought of it. I would imagine right now for you and Goalkeeper.
Yeah, yep, exactly. And you're exactly right. Because I mean, when we first started playing shows in like 2017, just for fun, we could play 7 Philly shows in 2 months because we were so new. Like you were saying, any exposure is great.
Yeah.
But then we've been very fortunate that at the last two releases that we've had, we have brought out, our crowds and our audience has grown exponentially. And we started to see that when we take on some of these more like, oh, this could just be a fun Philly show to play, it's
Mm-hmm.
like we've had people come up to us and say, yo, I'm going to come to this show instead of your show at this big for your holiday show because this is cheaper and it fits my schedule better.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas then when we start to learn from that, we would say, okay, well, hey, this is our only Philly show until the end of the year. So people are more willing to come out to both and kind of fit their schedules around it if they really want to come see us. Um,
Mm-hmm.
which has then helped us get better opportunities as well because then people are coming to see us in our hometown. They're seeing 100 to 200 kids, which is great.
Oh,
Plus, people's ears
absolutely.
aren't so yeah, and plus people's ears aren't so like exhausted from it because we play a pretty similar set until this new record comes out. So there's only so many times you can see us open up with "Happy," and end with "Sunshine." So
Oh, sure. I mean, just on I totally understand it. Although I could absolutely uh hear that happy opening every time, because I'm like, I always like after we play, and then you guys come on after I've like stashed my stuff in the corner. I'm just like shouting all of the words, cuz shouting all the words at Ryan until he smiles at me basically. Because because I was fortunate enough, and I'd love to talk a little bit about the last couple of years. I was very lucky to get to hear Life in Slow Motion before it came out. So I was like, I had this like cool little secret that I was so waiting to share with like my friend Thea, who was at the last show, or my friend Paul, who was also at the last show. Um,
mhm.
so I would love to ask you a little bit, Mark, um, how like let's go through kind of like the last couple years since we talked, because when we last chatted, I think since then you guys have like played with Bowling for Soup. You've done these like big like national tours, and the most important thing is uh, Life in Slow Motion. Your second EP came out. So what was the reaction to that when Life in Slow Motion finally came out amidst the pandemic?
So we were nervous about releasing something in the pandemic, for as every band was, because you just didn't know if it would have the staying power when shows would eventually come back. And at the time, we didn't know when shows were going to come back. We didn't realize that we
That's
would be
true. Yeah.
playing we'd be playing shows as early as the following July. Um, let alone, like at all. So it was very nerve wracking, but it was received very well. I think what a lot of people recognized was we took our time to go to, I believe we talked about this before, like because we took our time to go to bigger producers and have like more experienced names on the record than than Bad Times Don't Last, the previous one, that
Mm-hmm.
really stood out for a lot of people. And it was funny. And I think we joked about this a couple years ago when we were first talking. We accidentally wrote a pandemic record without realizing we wrote a pandemic record.
Right, right.
Um, I mean, just the title alone, like Life in Slow Motion, like the second it came out, everyone's like, this has literally been since my March. And, you know, for
Right.
that, for the, for then some time after, and again, we wrote that record and had a title before the world even shut down. You know, like we had no idea that the COVID was coming. It was just ironic. And so I feel like we've been very fortunate the last two records to kind of hit that time. Like when Bad Times Don't Last came out, it was a really good time for a lot of people to hear that because a lot of people came through and they were saying, "Man, I was having a really rough time until I heard this record, and it really helped me through." And then even
Hmm.
with Life in Slow Motion being a little bit more of a darker concept record out like EP, touching on areas that we haven't really touched on before, you know, that coming out ironically during the pandemic, a lot of people said the same thing, like, yo, this is helping me get through this because I've never felt more like I never really related to an EP like so well.
Yeah.
Especially with everyone's experiencing the, you know, their situation with the pandemic and everything.
Oh, absolutely. And I don't think I ever told you this, but like occasionally, like now that my algorithms have figured I get fed a lot of pop punk stuff. The thing I liked most about, especially Happy, in a genre that's famous for it's like the "You broke my heart and you're a terrible person" kind of
Mm-hmm.
songs. Like that was like a wish you the best kind of breakup song.
Yeah.
Not unlike uh, oh, I feel so bad that I'm blanking on the name of this song from Bad Times, but oh,
Chances?
Chance to Be With You, Chances, I think is what
Chances,
it's
yeah.
called. Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Like again, it reflects that sort of like worldly maturity, and then
Mm-hmm.
yeah, absolutely, like the kind of overall tone fit in very well with the collective world experience
Mm-hmm.
at the moment.
Yeah, I think we kind of, you know, we've been talking and become friends over the years. Like we're optimistic, positive people,
Uh huh.
and I we never want to write about something we don't really know. And so when these times have come up in our lives, like breakups and heartbreak, especially now being in our, you know, being a little bit older, we're not 16-year-old fuck the world kids anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you kind of we kind of took like a little bit more of a mature approach to it. It's like if this is ending, it's probably for the best, even if it hurts more than anything in the world. Like this person doesn't want to be with you, which then opens you up to the opportunity to find someone who does. And
Right.
so when you really take a step back and reframe those thoughts, you know, counseling talk right now, being the counselor, you start
Yeah.
to realize, like, yes, it really does hurt to lose this person because you're losing the familiarity and the comfort that you've developed for your life. But you are now opening yourself up to an opportunity to find that person who is really going to value every part of you and want to dedicate their time and their life to you. So is it really so
Mm-hmm.
bad when you think about it that this relationship ended? No. So that's why we came up with things like happy, like, you know, I just want you to be happy. If this is what needs to happen, cool. Because that means I can be happy too.
Mm-hmm. 100%. Like it's very like or even like a Black and Blue, I think is also like a big like I gotta I gotta get my shit together basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A lot of getting your
Yeah.
shit together.
No, totally. So having these names, because I think I was around the time the EP came out, I was able to kind of get all your producers and your mixer, like get everybody kind of involved.
Mm-hmm.
So having all these names involved and working on the music kind of naturally helps like gather interest. Like, oh, like I know this person, I'm gonna go check that out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's, I tell bands that all the time. You know, one of the, I think a lot of the reason we got so much recognition for Life in Slow Motion and what we're experiencing now as we're getting ready to release the new stuff is we have been fortunate enough to work with figureheads in the industry. And so as you're saying, like when we release Life in Slow Motion, to see like Kevin Hit the Lights, Will from Cartel, uh, excuse me, so I'm sorry, Seb from Neck Deep, the average pop punk listener is going to say, all right, well, if all three of those people are on this track or these songs, like I should at least give it a bump and see what it
Sure,
sounds like.
yeah.
Um, and the same thing now with our new record, working with Kevin again, and now Nik from Man Overboard, and Seth Henderson, who produced a lot like Copacetic and a lot of the Real Friends albums and whatnot. There's thankfully been a lot of interest from people there. Like, okay, well, if you've got these people, like, I'm gonna listen to this. So, um, now I will say, I'm we don't go to them just for their names. We go to them for their expertise, but it does
Hmm.
help that uh, it really does help that these idols to us are, giving us their time and helping us learn to be better songwriters and helping us hone in our craft and these songs that we want to put out. So,
That's really awesome. That's got to be just a very cool experience to be able to like get knowledge and like especially like creative input from these folks. Let me ask you because when you guys did the acoustic version of Black and Blue, that was with Nick.
yep, that was our first. So we purposely wanted to bring that song to somebody who didn't work on the record to kind of get a different idea of how to reconstruct that acoustically.
Okay. Uh,
And Nick was hitting us up after Just Say It came out to do something together. And actually prior to that we did some songwriting sessions, so he was like our obvious choice for that song.
mhm. And so when he started hitting you up, did you guys know that that project was going to be an acoustic version of that song?
Mm-mm. Nope. He
Oh,
uh
okay.
he initially hit us up because he heard Just Say It and he loved the song. So he said, "Hey, I want to work with you guys again." Because for those who don't know, he actually recorded and mixed our song Screwdriver way back in the day.
Mm,
Um, so we actually initially worked with him on a song that we were kind of struggling putting together, which actually ended up making it on the record. Uh,
mhm.
and so after working with him on that and kind of hashing out a lot of our experience, like our kind of like our feelings towards each other, not that there were anything negative, but it was kind of awesome to hear Nick come up to us and say, when you guys were here with Screwdriver, I kind of knew there was something cool, but I don't think I recognized where you guys were going to go and the hard work you were going to put into it. And so to see that you guys did that is super awesome. I just want to say like you have all the respect in the world for me from doing that. Like, and initially I didn't know you guys were going to be able to pull that off. So that was really cool to hear one of the idols of of our careers go up and say,
Uh-huh.
"Yeah, you kind of proved me wrong. I didn't necessarily think you were going to do much because we were so young and naive and immature when we were doing that song that I don't think anyone knew we could do something." But so anyway, uh, after working with a songwriting session, the label came up to us and said, "Hey, what's a cool way that we can kind of re-promote the EP?" And at the time,
Mhm.
a lot of bands, and they're still doing it now, do the reimagined versions of songs. So we
Uh-huh.
said, let's do that, but we would like to do Black and Blue because that's like the one song on the EP that would be, we thought the coolest to do acoustic. And then working with Nick, we were actually able to work with some other artists who tracked violin and piano and really kind of made it this like folk song,
Mhm.
um, which ultimately then, after working on that with him, led us to committing to Nick for this whole record as well, the new one.
Excellent. And just for because, musician curiosity, is the acoustic version tuned the same way as the electric version?
Yep. So, I mean, instead of drop C sharp, which for those who don't know is drops D half step down, it's just E flat standard, which is the same tuning except just in the standard version.
Gotcha. Okay, so it's not quite as low, but still lower than E E standard.
Yep. Yeah. So it's like a half step down. Um, and we just made it instead of doing so, drop D, obviously.
Yep.
So to drop C sharp is literally a half step down from that. So it's essentially E flat, just in drop D form. But we
Okay.
went to the standard version because we could get a lot more tones and voicings of the chords doing that versus the C sharp version. It's too power chordy. The standard gives you a lot more open chord accessibility to really bring out the life and the feeling of the song.
Oh yeah, totally. And especially like on acoustic guitar, you want you want all that stuff like ringing out, all those open strings ringing out. That's like my
Accent.
favorite thing on
Yeah.
yeah. Like that was like one of my favorite thing on like older dashboard stuff, like when he would play in that really drony open tuning or like Goo Goo Dolls, like it's very
Yep.
satisfying like when you're a beginner guitarist just like, oh, I can just take my one finger on and off and it sounds great. Um,
Yep.
so yeah, and I also love like the arrangement of the arrangement of the acoustic version of that song is great. Like especially like when Cody's on the drums comes in like right before the chorus. Like I'm a sucker for acoustic songs that have drums because you don't see it a lot.
Yeah, and when we went to do the song with Nick, we were very adamant that we didn't want it to just be me and Ryan, the guitar and vocals. Like we wanted a bass line,
Hmm.
we wanted drums. Actually, I went to Nick and I said, look up the Blackbird sessions for by Beartooth, and I said I want that essentially.
Uh huh.
And for those who haven't seen it or heard it, Beartooth goes into the famous Blackbird studio in Nashville, and like the whole band is playing together on acoustic stripped down instruments with added musicians and female singers for certain harmony parts. Really brings out a song like Disease and just makes it so beautiful, you know.
Hmm.
Um, and so that's what we wanted to do, and uh, Nick was the guy. And he absolutely knocked out. It's one of my favorite things we've ever done. I wish it got more love, but such is
Oh man.
such is life.
Oh man. I'm
Not
surprised
that
because
anyone
that
hated. Not
was
that anyone hated it. Yeah, yeah. Sorry for cutting off. Not that anyone hated it. It was just obviously it's a reimagined, so they never do nearly as well as the original version. But
hmm.
like I still, that's like admittedly one of the few songs that we've ever put out that I still put on my Spotify every once in a while.
Nice. Well, it made my cruising California playlist, so it came up periodically when my wife and I were out in California just a few weeks ago. So, and so
Nice.
talking of like songwriting sessions and with like Nick, and I think you guys have also done some stuff with Casey from the Wonder Years. What is something when it comes to like songwriting or arranging that you've learned from those guys?
So it's kind of fun. We kind of got both ends of the spectrum here.
Uh huh.
So Nick approached it very much in like the man overboard type way. Like, is this cool and catchy? Don't overthink it. You know, like you can play the
Mm-hmm.
same riff numerous times throughout the song as long as the riff is just that catchy, you know? And
Yeah.
the lyrics don't have to be overly complicated and deep. Like they just have to say something, like they have to have substance,
Mm-hmm.
but easily digestible. So working with Nick on the one song, it we kind of flew like right through it. And then when we got to the lyrics, like we were pretty quick on the lyrics too. Casey, on the other hand, is the extreme opposite, where he is like, let's overthink. No, I don't want to say overthink. That's for me. That's not the case. Let's really think and break down every part of this song, every word, every note, every chord, every arrangement, and let's really see if it's the strongest version possible.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so that was really challenging for us. And I'll even go admittedly say, like, after the first day of working with Casey, we like approached him and said, yo, like, that was a lot for us yesterday to like take a
Uh-huh.
song that we were pretty sold. Cause like what we did with Casey is we had a song that we were pretty hyped about, but he was like, I really like it, but I don't think it's the strongest form yet. And I don't feel like you're
Okay.
doing that song justice. So we decided instead of writing a new song, we worked on a one we've already done for the new record with him and like revamped it.
Mm-hmm.
And we've never done that before, and we're a pretty simplistic band. Like, hey, does it set like again? That's why us and Nick work so well together. Was like, does it sound good? Is it catchy? Do the lyrics have substance? Cool. Don't overthink it. Track it. Go.
Yeah.
But Casey really pushed us to sit there and think, is this really the best version of the song? Does this chorus really hit as hard as it could? Or is this
Mm-hmm.
lead really as cool as it is? And yeah, we and we hashed it out with him. Really understood where he was coming from, and then it kind of gave us a perspective of like, well, this is what makes the Wonder Years so great. Like they don't just go into a studio, right? The first thing that comes to their mind, likes it, and records it. Like they've obviously, he was telling us how some of their songs have gone through like 20 plus revisions before you heard it on the record.
Oh wow.
Um, yeah, and so I think what we really learned from him was to just, you know, never settle and just be satisfied. Like really look into the song and really understand what's the message you're trying to portray. And the dude does every aspect of the song and every instrument, everything working together. Does it really portray that message?
Mm-hmm.
And so the song that's on the record that we worked with is called Half In, Half Out. And the original version of it didn't hit with how hard and heavy the lyrics were. It was more of this like
Uh-huh.
upper beat kind of minor sounding pop punk song, kind of like a plus 44, like
Okay.
Boxcar Racer vibe.
Mm-hmm.
But Casey really showed us how like the way the song was constructed musically, it didn't relate to the lyrics. Like you have these really dark and heavy and lyrics that Ryan really exposes a lot of himself like personally
Uh-huh.
with this like happy kind of upbeat song. And he's like, it's almost like you're trying to run away from the seriousness of the content of this music, of the lyrics. So like
Uh-huh.
instead of trying to run from that, why don't we just like dive in and make it heavy and mean and big and dark and really relate to the lyrics well. And that's what we did, and it ended up becoming one of our favorites on the record.
Wow, I'm really relating to this on a couple of different levels because as a comedian, I often use laughter to deflect from a deep overwhelming sadness or something that's or some shit that I clearly have not like resolved yet. And I know a lot of
Mm-hmm.
my peers that are like that too. So that the original version of this song almost sounds a, like a musical defense mechanism in a way.
Yeah, I would say so, and I think it's also just what we've known because we're such a lighthearted, pop, like positive pop punk band. I think we were like,
Mm-hmm.
we were just kind of leaning into what we know, and
Uh-huh.
Casey really pushed us to be like, well, let's get a little uncomfortable, guys, because that's how you're going to grow as musicians and really make an impact on people.
Mm-hmm.
Don't just play what you know because everyone already knows Goalkeeper and they already know what to expect. So you have to give them something they're not ready for. And
Yeah.
personally, I think we took that and put that into every aspect of our every other song as we were recording the rest of the record. Like we have one song, we have never done anything like it. It is completely left field, but it's one of everyone's favorite songs who's heard the record. And so I really think that even after working on that song with Casey, we ended up applying that message to every other track on the record. And it
Mm-hmm.
really helped us create something that we are insanely proud of, especially for our first full length.
That's amazing. And he's the guy to do it for because his band has had a couple of different stylistic I'm not going to say changes because it's all kind of makes sense, but like swerves through different styles. So that makes sense that he would kind of. I can definitely see the value to both approaches. Like there's almost like you there's the Nick approach, which is like get get like the bare bones. Like don't overthink it. Don't let overthinking get in the way of your creativity. And then there's like the Casey approach when it comes to that revision stage and like the strengthening of it. Like you're building a bridge almost. Like you can just throw up a bridge, but you want to make sure that that bridge that people can drive over it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that's like, it was really important for us to have like, for us to have both. And because actually going back to the song I was saying, it's like completely in like left field from what we do.
Uh-huh.
We started to overthink that. We started to add different things that didn't make sense, and we just wanted to build it out. And Nick really had to be like, stop. Like, it's good. We need it
Right.
simple. We need it easily digestible. This is not a complicated song. Chill.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, but I think having the balance between both of those is what allows us to continue to grow as like songwriters, because now we're already thinking about new stuff for after this record comes out, and
Mm-hmm.
how we want to approach it with like chord structures and the type of playing and just things that I'm like catching myself and like, okay, yeah, that's definitely something Casey said to us in that weekend.
Oh, that's awesome. And to ask you a little bit about that, just on a personal, when it comes to your guitar playing, like I imagine this process is probably also like pulling you into places like playing wise that are maybe unfamiliar. Did you find yourself um, like really like stretching yourself like musically as far as your abilities as a guitarist?
Yes, figuratively and literally, I have some chords on the record that my hand, I need to like cut the tendons in my between my fingers, I felt like.
Right.
Um, but no, but for sure, like different, like again, like different chord structures. Actually, this record, even though it's not a sad sounding record, we used a lot more minor keys than we ever have before.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and because these songs are actually a little bit more complicated and built out differently, so I really had to figure out how do I make this sound full as a three piece. And I know people say like we've always sounded full, but I mean, this is literally like how do I make this standard like D major chord not just sound like a standard D major chord, but actually have emotion and feeling to it, but it's something that I can play and really have the guitar like resonate. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Different leads. Like I was playing like leads I never really have done before. We have a solo on one song. It's not anything crazy by any means, but anytime I've done a lead or something, it's usually some form of like octave chord lead. And this is
Uh-huh.
using some techniques like the story so far would have used. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I really did find myself trying to do things differently with the guitar so that it kind of stood out. And really, my biggest thing when I write is I want the guitar to relate to the lyrics. So if
Mm-hmm.
Ryan's saying a certain word or a certain phrase, as you've heard with other stuff like Just Say It, Black and Blue, and even our new song Sooner, which you've heard live at this
Yes,
point,
I have.
I really want every chord to match and resonate with the lyrics that Ryan is singing.
That's you're blowing my mind right now, dude, because it's like you're almost like again, you're like doubling up on your message. Like the message, there's the message in the words, and then the guitar is conveying that, and then bass drums also conveying that. So they almost become like elements of the story you're telling in the song.
Mhm.
And with that song in particular, I'd love to talk about that one because that's the song from the newest song of yours I've heard so far, Sooner. Um, I think you might have said on Facebook there this is like your Menzinger song, um, or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. So for this new record, we didn't okay. Cody defines Sooner as if Blink 182 and the Menzingers had a baby and that baby met Yellow Card and those two people wrote a song together, it would be Sooner.
Well, you're clicking checking a lot of my boxes on that one
Yeah.
because there's a certain kind of wistfulness to Sooner, like that's the same sort of feeling. Like it made me miss somebody that I didn't
Mhm,
know I missed, and in the same way that like when I first heard Anna by the Menzingers, I
mhm,
missed Anna even though I've never met Anna.
mhm.
If that makes any sense, and
Yep.
yeah, there's so I definitely hear that, and then it's got that sort of like again like classic kind of like excellent punk rock, like pop punk kind of vibe,
Mhm.
and then yeah, there's sort of this sort of like, and I'll be very anxious to hear the recorded version. Maybe that's sort of like wistful ambiance of like post Paper Walls Yellow Card.
Yeah, and it's funny because I kind of came up out of like that band kind of came up out of nowhere. Like we were on tour and we were listening to like all their records, like their full lengths, and a lot of the non-singles. We started to be like, yo, there's a lot of that shit sprinkled into our new record that we didn't even really know. Because Yellow Card's never been like a huge band for us as far as
Mm-hmm.
like inspiration. Uh, love them, but like they weren't the first band we put in like our four fans of. And but as we're listening to a lot of their deep cuts, we're like, shit, this has a lot of that in there. um, but yeah, so I mean I mean when we say like who like this record was inspired by, I mean it's weird. It's it's pop punk record, but heavily inspired by the Menzingers. And I think what's specific with the Menzingers is their simplistic music with really emotional storytelling. Like you were saying, singing about a song by from someone named Anna, but like the listener misses Anna, even though we don't know who it is. I mean, it's obviously us putting that person from our past life,
Uh-huh.
not past life, but like in our previous times in our life, like missing that partner or friend.
Mm-hmm.
But they can just convey this emotion. You're like, I don't even know an Anna, but I've missed the shit out of her.
Mm-hmm.
um, and stuff like that. So, like Menzinger's, Wonder Years specifically, like Greatest Generation on, and that was really with for like the explosiveness nature of their songs since then.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my favorite song by them is Devil in Your Bloodstream. And I think that's one of the most
Yeah.
like emotional, heartfelt like songs in our genre in the last 20 years. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then we kind of dove into a lot of different bands. Jimmy Eat World, Coldplay, um,
Mm-hmm.
especially songs like Yellow and Fix You, and like really, if you really break down the chord structures and the music of those bands, it's a lot more complicated than you think. And then
Yeah.
Oasis, and then me and Ryan specifically, heavily influenced by classic country artists like Conway Twitty, Alan Jackson,
Uh-huh.
Johnny Cash, um, different things like that. So we think all those kind of like culminate into a song like Sooner because they all have this innate ability to tell a story and bring up emotions we had no idea were inside.
That makes total sense to me because I've heard punk described as three chords in the truth, and I've heard country described as three chords in the truth. That's that's awesome. To hear say that. Dude, I'm just gonna say this now, but I hope you're gonna have to send me this record before it comes out because I don't know if I can wait for when the record comes out.
I'll
Like,
send it to you today.
cross my heart, hope to die. It's not going anywhere, but I'm so excited to hear more new stuff, dude. And the fact that you got Zach and Aaron for the video, I can't wait to see that. That's really sweet. Um, Question about like the recording process, just on like a ten- technical level. Did you use when it comes to like recording guitars? Did you use like different sounds or tones than you had from previous records?
Yeah.
Like if you're layering guitars, did you need to use something different than the Les Paul or humbuckers to get those leads to stand out?
So we most of this record was actually all humbuckers. But what we did is we focused on different guitar tones specifically.
Mm-hmm.
So with Life in Slow Motion, we used a Marshall JCM 900, 800 is like the main tone. And then the
Uh
added
huh.
tunes were my Orange TH30 that you've seen me play live. That's been on every
Yep.
single record. And then for this record, we actually used a lot more vintage gear. So Nick has this vintage Marshall Plexi head, which
Uh huh.
if anyone's a guitar nerd, they're drooling over that head.
Yeah, for
With a
any
very
non-guitarist listening to this that's like the holy grail, one of the holy grails of good sounding guitar amps.
Yeah, I mean you can put that up to anything and it'll blow it away every like nine and a half times out of ten. Um, and then we added my Orange TH30 in there. But what we did was we layered a lot of guitar. So we actually rolled the gain. So because I was playing more open chords for this record and not so many power
Mm-hmm.
chords, uh, we actually rolled the gain down and then layered it because since I was
Uh-huh.
hitting the strings so hard to kind of get a lot of resonance from every string I was hitting, we didn't need to over like a lot of overdrive or distortion because it would have muddied it up. So we actually rolled it down to the point where the gain was only like maybe halfway at most on some parts. And then by
Uh-huh.
stacking like three guitars on top of it, it just made it a natural like overdrive sound. Um, Very similar to what bands like AC/DC and Led Zeppelin and Jimmy Eat World and Nirvana and stuff would do. Um, and so primarily we used Gibsons, SG, my Les Paul, and I'm pretty sure we used some Fender Deluxes at one point for like some sprinkly like notes and leads and stuff in there, but
Mm-hmm.
really kind of stripped down. Like I think it was like, oh, that here's a secret weapon. We used Nick's Jericho guitar, which is not a company that I'm very fond of. Um, but they had a Seymour Duncan JB in the bridge, and they actually used an Evertune bridge. So I
Uh-huh.
got to fly through my rhythm tracks because I wasn't retuning after every take.
Nice.
And Nick also has the strings locked, so if I bend the strings down, they didn't go out of tune. So I was able just to focus on actually what the Evertune really does in the studio is it allows the player to really focus on the emotion that they want to put into the song versus the technical prowess of it. So if I really needed to hit a part of a song really aggressively, like I'm live digging into it, and maybe the
Mm-hmm.
strings are bending a little bit because I'm bringing in all that emotion, I could do that while still staying in tune.
Right, right. Yeah. You can like rock out in the studio to like convey like the way you're playing and it stays in tune.
Yeah, those are phenomenal bridges, and I really want one. So,
No, no, so do I. I've seen when I saw Newfound Glory, Chad plays with an Evertune in his Les Paul. I don't
yeah.
know if I would ever want to modify one of my current guitars to put one in, but if I could find one with one existing, even if it's like a super pointy metal one, uh, I would do that.
Mhm. Yeah,
um,
I have a 92 Les Paul, and I told everyone in the studio that I'm going to put an Evertune in it, and I'm pretty sure they almost all killed me because they're like, don't, just buy an Epiphone with one put into it and just modify the Epiphone out the ass for live.
right. I heard some story on like Guitar YouTube of somebody who sold like a vintage Les Paul custom to someone, and the guy ended up putting like a Floyd Rose in it, and I wept. I had like
Yeah,
residual pain
yeah.
as a result of hearing that. I could never do a Floyd Rose because I just, to quote Jay Mascis, I'd have to throw the guitar away because I could not figure out how to restring it.
Yeah, honestly.
Um, and and this might be maybe I'll ask Ryan, I'll ask Ryan this as well when I have him back on. But when it comes to like the lyrical content of these songs and like where you guys, I guess all were when you were working on this stuff, um, is it, are we think? Do you think it seems like there might be some darker songs on the record?
Yeah, how should I describe it? Yeah, I mean, because it'll definitely be better for Ryan because I don't write the lyrics, but I would say so. Him and Cody, as you know, contribute equally, and there was no different for this song, this record. I mean,
Mhm. Yeah.
actually, there was a couple of songs that Cody wrote everything lyrically and melody wise, which was pretty awesome to see him grow as a songwriter too. Um, but I would say it's not so much darker in the sense of like here's a lot of like inner demons that I'm fighting, but I think we took a step away from the love is great, do, I love love, you know what I mean? To like,
Uh
hey,
huh.
here's
Yeah.
the actual reality of this fucking shit, you know what I mean? It doesn't always work out, you know? Um,
Yeah.
there are times that a relationship is absolutely just killing both of you and you need to end it, or you know this isn't going to work out, so you just have to kind of like enjoy every second you have together. Or you know, there is something holding you back from fully engaging. So you have to kind of challenge your own commitment issues to a relationship,
Mm-hmm.
and like your past demons that prevent you from fully committing. So I think that's where the record really uh, was like touching on for a lot of the darker tones of it. I mean, the album's titled I Wish I Met You Sooner because it's this
Oh,
resounding
that's so
idea
good.
that, yeah, and it's like the resounding idea of if we were just in a different life, maybe this could have worked out, or I could have at least gotten to spend more time with you. So, and I think that kind of like captures or captures like everything I just said about the lyrical content that Ryan and Cody worked on so specifically.
Oh, I feel like I just got punched in the chest with that title. That's so good.
Dude, I'm
That's
happy.
oh man, that is some like that is some like that is some like real that is some real life coming at you like the
Mhm.
like I just think of like because you think of like all the stuff that you think is like so important you get so hung up on at certain times and then you're just like oh if I could have just gotten out of my own way faster I could have been maybe I could have been enjoying what I'm enjoying now sooner.
Yeah, it's exactly. Or I don't know. I mean, it's just all of that. That's why it's hard to kind of describe because it's like everything that somebody would be saying, like what you just said. Like I didn't even think about, oh, I could have been like enjoyed this more if I would have just got out of my own way, and I could have actually enjoyed this a lot sooner and whatnot. Like there you go. There's a third message behind the title.
Mm-hmm.
Funny enough, that title was looked at three different times and rejected by us before we agreed to it.
Oh really?
Oh yeah, because Ryan first brought it up, and me and Cody were like, yeah, this kind of sucks. No, and then I think I brought it back up, and Ryan and Cody were like, yeah, nah, it kind of sucks. And then Cody brought it up again, and me and Ryan were like, yeah, it kind of sucks. And I was like, wait, we were all like, wait a second. This is the only title that has come up three different times that
Got to be
we've
something
like any
behind it.
given any thoughts. Exactly, and that's why we were just like, you know what, let's just go with it. And we brought it to our label, and Vinny and our manager and everyone was just like, perfect, don't change a thing, absolutely perfect. We're like,
Fa-
cool.
Fantastic. That is so cool. Um, and do and how many songs are on the record?
10.
10. So yeah, this is again your first proper full length
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know if you can't answer this yet don't you don't but is there a release date yet?
That I won't say just yet.
Okay.
We're gonna announce that with the second single, but I will give everyone a sneak peek since enough people know it's a full length by now.
Ah, okay. Very cool. Very cool.
I'll tell
So
you
so
off. I'll tell
soon
you off air.
okay, sounds good. Um and let's see Mark is
Sorry, I had to bounce. My computer's about to die.
oh, it's okay. No worries at all. I'll vamp until you get it plugged in.
We are
So
good.
excellent. So by the when this comes out, the sing sooner will be released as a single. And then what's kind of like the plan for after what's kind of the plan? Because this is also stuff I want to know for like releasing my own things as well. Um, how many like are you putting out like two or three singles before the full length comes out?
Two, and then we'll have a third music video for when the record drops. So,
Excellent,
mm,
very cool. And
very classic release strategy. Um, and then sorry, it's my dogs. They're all hyper, clicking, clacking
oh
around on the
no
hardwood floor.
worries. That's why I love
But yeah,
podcasting is for this stuff.
oh yeah, I think the last time we talked, I was on the phone with my wife.
Yes,
um,
that is true.
but yeah, so yeah, two singles and the record. And then we have a really cool opportunity we're going to be announcing super soon. And then a tour. in the fall, and then a whole mess of touring next year. This is the next year is really going to be where we say we're going for it. You know, we're going to work on the road. We're going to say probably be gone for over 100 to 125 days between shows and
Wow.
travel. Um, yeah, so the next year, and then probably a little bit into 2024. I mean, we'll start writing and do all that stuff too, but the next like 18 months, we're going to be really hitting it super hard. And, you know, maybe we'll do some fun stuff, like maybe some more reimagined versions. We haven't really talked about that, but I would love to do it because I think songs like Sooner and a few others on the record would lend themselves well to a reimagined version.
Awesome. That sounds so cool. So again, this is the thing that like bands like work towards is again the that that long those long months of touring. I'm so excited for you guys because what's the longest tour you've been on to up to this point? Was this the Calling All Captains one? Like 2 months at a time?
Yeah, well, so we weren't on the whole 2 months for that one. We were just on the back leg of it. So since they're from Canada, they had to pay so much money for their visas. They usually do a 2 month tour in the States, so they don't have to worry
Yeah.
about coming back for like a year. Um, but anywho, but our leg with them was the longest. It was about 3 weeks, and we only had one off day.
Wow.
So
That sounds
yeah,
intense.
we're very fortunate to live where we do, as you would know, being from New York. We
Mhm.
don't have to worry about going out for like a month at a time to hit certain cities, like maybe bands from the Southwest or Pacific Northwest, or maybe even dead center in the country, like North Dakota or Oklahoma do, because you're so far from everything. You
Right.
have to dedicate a lot of time just to go in between city to city. We're very fortunate that in a weekend we can cover Boston to Baltimore, you know?
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, but that's the longest tour we've done. Around, just under 3 weeks, with like one off day, and it was really insane to see how the first couple shows were pretty good, and then by the back half of the tour, every show was like kicking ass. I mean, you saw even Brooklyn. Brooklyn was the promoter
Mhm.
said it was the most people that a Goalkeeper show has like brought in. So, and for a
That's
Tuesday night,
awesome.
that floor was pretty packed. So we're like sick.
Oh yeah, like that was super cool to the two times I played with you guys at Silver, and that was really awesome to be a part of that. First off, that's just like I love that space. I've sweated my ass off on that stage, and I've also frozen my ass off on that stage,
Yeah.
on two different shows. So that's very cool that you can again and like you're seeing this like incremental growth each time you come through town. That's really that's really awesome, man. What is something? This again, I'm asking for myself for the future. What is like, if you could like talk to a band that hasn't done like a long tour, like a lot of out of their own hometown touring, and say, make sure you avoid this or make sure you bring this. What would it be?
Underwear, instruments. Um, Believe it or not, uh, we had bands come up to me and say, "I don't have a guitar. Can I borrow yours?" Uh, so, but I would say the biggest thing too is don't. We live in an internet world where it is not impossible to go viral on TikTok and have a draw in like Seattle, and you live in Baltimore.
Mm-hmm.
So don't do too much too soon. Pace yourself. I think that's the biggest thing I tell bands who are getting out there for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you have jobs that let you tour as much as you want, pace yourself. Do some weekenders. Do 2 weekenders in a month. Do a 10-day tour. Like kind of work your shit out as a band and get know your rhythm for touring
Mm-hmm.
before you just get into the back of a before you get back in the back of a van and travel out there for like 8 weeks. Me and Cody and
Yeah.
Ryan really had to learn each other's rhythms. You know, how we sleep, how we wake up, the space we need. Like, you know, all that stuff is what makes us. We don't fight on tour. Never have. You know. I mean, we might get a
Hmm.
little snippy if we're super tired and I say something stupid or whatever, but like it's never been
Sure.
like a full knockdown fight of you're pissing me off, you need to do this, you need to do that. It's like we've learned our rhythms and we learned what each other needs to be comfortable and to perform well, and we can easily accommodate that because we've learned all those like tricks together. So, like I said,
Yeah.
pace yourself. Do a couple weekenders. Um, and then as you start to gain a little bit of growth and followings in those cities, use those cities to carry you to go further. So we know we can play Pittsburgh, Cleveland, and Toledo, and there will be people there, and we will get paid well, and we will sell a lot of merch. So we can use those
Hmm.
three cities to then fund us to go further into like the Midwest or down to Texas.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Those become like your kind of anchor shows, so that you could like take the risk on like a new market, or maybe like a show where it's like, okay, we gotta sell some shirts tonight.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I feel like a lot of new bands just want to kind of get out there and go, and it's
Hmm.
awesome to have that excitement and have that like that fighting energy. But it is possible to do too much too soon, where you burn yourselves out, and next thing you know,
Hmm.
when you're getting a little bit of traction, all of a sudden you need like a few months off because you're so burnt out.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the like the that's the most important thing. And I feel like because when I talk to like bands like yours, or when I talk to other bands, I feel like now it almost seems like that model of like the nonstop like Metallica model where you tour for 2.5 years, that exists for like a very tiny stratosphere of people. But there's definitely like this is like the healthy way to travel and be an artist,
Mm.
and still for like the long haul.
Well, and, yeah, and we all have to remember like those bands, even as early as the early 2000s and before, they didn't have tools like the internet, Facebook,
Mm-mm.
MySpace, TikTok, Instagram, Spotify, just so people randomly get fed your songs and then become fans all over the world. So, if you're from Philadelphia and you want to develop a draw in Boston, you got to play Boston 10 times a year.
Mm-hmm.
um, and be good. On top of that, you got to not only go there a whole bunch of times a year, but you got to be really good and like stand out. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but now, like, you still have to be good, obviously, but
Yeah.
you don't have to play Boston just at 10 times to have a draw. You can go up there and have three or like two to four really meaningful shows up there with like, and, and then the time that you're at home, you know, being creative, writing songs, posting online, remaining active. I know some people cringe at the idea of content online, but it is what it is. You can't fight it, And the bands who are
Mm-hmm.
out there creating content and putting their music out there and sharing and being interactive with people online, they're the ones who are developing friends and fans versus the bands who don't have anything, you know? Um,
Mm-hmm.
so, which I think really helps because then, you don't have to have that old touring mindset of, okay, well, we have to get in the van for 8 months this year and play a bunch of shows that have two kids. Like
Yeah.
I was reading the No Effects book that they put out as a hepatitis bathtub and other
Uh-huh.
stories or whatever it was. And it's in because obviously everyone knows that they were not very good in the beginning of their career, and it's
Uh-huh.
insane to think that they would play like 7 to 9 months a year to in front of like less than 10 people over half the shows. But like that's what you had to do to make it back then. You just had to get out
Mm-hmm.
there, and I still think it's important. But again, you don't have to kill yourself to do it. Sometimes you can make
Yeah.
just as big of an impact online.
Oh, most certainly. And I even think there's ways of kind of recontextualizing all of the like the social media stuff that's now important as in terms of like reaching new people. Like I think there's are ways of making like fun little videos or music related things to promote yourself that there's a way of making it fun. I think.
And on this captain's tour, because everyone who knows me like knows I post a lot and like about goalkeeper and tours and stuff in the pop punk groups on Facebook and Reddit and
Mm-hmm.
all that stuff. I remember a couple of times on this tour, like there would be people who would comment on the post and be like, "Oh, like I've heard of you guys. Like I'm going to come out to the Chicago date. I'm going to come out to the New Hampshire date." And I would like have a little bit of a comment section chat with them. And then when they would show up, and I would remember them, they would remember me. That was a genuine connection. Like we met online. They came to the show. I made it a point to be really really proactive with trying to remember as many of the people as I talked to as I could. And then when I
Mm-hmm.
got to hang out with that guy for 10, 15 minutes having a conversation, he came up to the show after and said, "Hey man, like that meant a lot that like a band that I really like took the time not only to talk to me online, but took the time to remember me. So when I came to the show, like it made me feel really special." And so
Mm-hmm.
we gained a friend, from that. So that's why I was saying like sometimes online can be just as impactful as just playing a city 1,000 times in a year.
Mm-hmm. No, that I've borrowed that from you because I only recently, and this is a long story on my part, but only recently is the first Bright Ugly recording like widely available now.
Mhm.
And the first thing I did was hop on our Instagram because I remember a few people who've come to from the shows that we've played with you who came up to me and liked us. I would like, hey, you might want to check us out here. We're on Spotify now. And they were like, yes, finally. And I would like have like a nice back and forth. So
Mhm.
that makes total sense. Again, you're fostering that I think as we've talked about before, you're fostering that community and that connection
Yeah,
with people.
yeah. And I think that's really important, and that's one of the best. That's one of the things that we've been hearing a little bit more often now, especially with like Twitter, because Cody is just such a sweetheart of a person. Um,
Uh huh.
a lot of people say it's nice to kind of have like our little community be so loving and supportive of each other. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Actually, quite a bit of our supporters and friends from different cities, they would interact together so much online. So our one friend, I'll call her out, Savannah, her and her boyfriend Josh and her mom are three of our biggest fans, and they're from the Northeast. She became friends with our friends in Rochester, who are always commenting and talking about us online, and they've never met.
Uh huh.
But when we played Rochester with Calling Out Captain, Savannah drove out to Rochester to the show, and she got to meet that friend she made from just interacting with Goalkeeper on social media. So, like, now she has a friend from us, and
Uh huh.
it's actually happened quite a few times with several other people where you see, they'll post on social media and like their stories, and you see like, oh, those two people met because of Goalkeeper shows, and now they're at the bar hanging out together. You know, um,
Mm-hmm.
and so I don't know. We really kind of like the community that we've been developing with our friends and supporters and whatnot, and uh, it's really important for us to also bring that to the live show because as we've all have experience with people, someone might be really nice online, but then you meet them in person and they're just a total drag of a person.
Right.
So and we're also pretty. I mean, as anyone who's listened to either of us talk on podcasts or in person, we're also very transparent and open. So if I'm having a shit day, I'll tell them like,
Mm-hmm.
"Hey, look, I really appreciate you coming out. I want to spend time and talk. I'm having a hard day. I'm really not in a space to have a good conversation. I just want you to know that I do appreciate you. And me not really wanting to be very active is nothing against you. It's just I'm not really having the best day." And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people just respect that honesty. They're like, "Okay, cool, thank you. Now I don't think you're just acting like a jerk."
Uh huh.
So, and I know that might not be easy for everyone to do. Like, I'm a therapist, so it's very easy for me to talk and be transparent.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but sometimes I feel like that transparency does go a long way, and so that people don't kind of get the wrong idea like of you. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and you are trying to foster that supportive, healthy, and safe community for your band and for your supporters.
Oh yeah, I think that's just great life advice. The amount of times that I've really cleared up like a disagreement with my wife by just stating why I felt a certain way that I did is it's like the Konami code of life hacks. So it's like very obviously there, but it's like involved to do. Again, if only If only I met you sooner, Mark.
I like
um,
that.
what? Yeah. One last thing I'd love to ask you because this has been a lovely conversation. This is kind of a fun one. But because you've been on the road more than me and been to places I haven't, I got to know what's going on at Bucky's. What's the magic of Bucky's? I love the mascot. I want a
Yeah.
plush. I want a plush of the mascot. What's the magic of Bucky's?
S- Dude, I don't know. It's like I think you just get enamored with the hype of it. Um, no, it's really cool. It's just a giant. It's a giant I call it kind of like a rest stop, like similar to like a pilot on the highway. But what they do is
Mm.
they kind of create this like experience. It's not just another rest stop, truck stop. You go in, they have beef jerky and sandwiches and gas, and you just go. Like they have the mascot, they have the country store, they got the merchandising, right? Like everyone loves that freaking beaver. Um, they've got their own stuff. Like they've got their own jerky, and they have like a deli where it's like, yo, you want to try this like cherry candied maple beef jerky? Yes, I'll take a bite. You like it? Of course, I'll take a pound. You know what I mean? And
Right.
um, the food is iconic. Like you just don't get that food anywhere else. I mean, everyone's been to the pilots and stuff where it's just like, here's the hot dogs on the rotating heater. That's like, and the
Yeah,
bread's
yeah.
up. But these they actually like craft their sandwiches like really well. Even the to go sandwiches, the bread is soft and covered, barbecue sauce. I don't know. Now I'm salivating as I speak. Uh, but I think it's just like they took the truck stop rest stop idea and they turned it into an experience. Much like a lot of bands do, right?
Hmm.
Like you took your band and you turned your live show into an experience for the listener. They took
Yes.
this basic concept of you need to eat and get gas, and they turned it into the experience. Also, they have the cleanest bathrooms of any gas station rest stop in the country, and that's like perfect. So you can
Yes, I
also
did. I did hear that.
you can also poop in peace.
Amazing. Life lessons from Bucky's. This is, and they're only in Texas.
No, so they've actually been expanding. They started in Texas, and then
Uh huh.
obviously the hype was so real and everyone loved it that they've expanded into some of the southeastern states like South Carolina. And the one that we've been going to is in Richmond, Kentucky, because we play a little town called Corbin, which is like you pass Richmond to get there, about 45 minutes away. Um, so yeah, I think they're going to continue to expand in some of the other like southern states and stuff like that. So it will soon be accessible in a lot more areas.
Awesome. Well, Mark, I appreciate you. I love you, man. I think you're. I'm so glad that we've gotten to like know each other other these last couple of years of you doing the podcast, and I can't wait to hear your new stuff, and I can't wait to see you guys go and do cool things, and of course to have the rest of the band on again.
Hell yeah. Well, thank you, dude. Like I said, I always appreciate friends wanting to, give us their platform to talk and share our stuff, and it means a lot to us as well.
Absolutely, man. Anytime. Thank you so much for coming back on the show.
Thanks, man.
All right, friends. That's my friend Mark from Goalkeeper. I'm very happy to be able to say that. Mark's a great guy. I've learned a lot about music and the practical aspects of touring from him over the time that I've known him, and his band is great. The new single from Goalkeeper, Sooner, is available now everywhere that you get your music. So make sure you go out and check that. It is I'm going to say, anthemic pop punk banger, and it is a really nice song. Like you put this on a mixtape for your beloved, and she will and they will enjoy it very much. So make sure check out Sooner by Goalkeeper everywhere that you get your music. And if you enjoyed this podcast and want to listen to more or are curious about who else I've talked to, you can go to awesomedisaster.com. You can find links to every episode of the show there, as well as links to our Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts. Everywhere you get your podcast, you can listen to Between Awesome and Disaster. You can also find all of my social media links. You can follow me on Twitter at Comic Will Carry and at Will Carry 23 on Instagram. And I post a lot of not just podcast and comedy related things, but got a lot of travel and food photos as well. So I'm a good follow, I like to think. And if you guys want to take another step to support the show a little bit further, you can check out the merch shop, which is available at awesomedisaster.com as well as patreon.com/awesomedisaster. Got some exclusive things that go on over there, and I'll get back into doing my monthly live streams very soon. So make sure you check that out as well. And continue to be excellent to one another. I can't remember where I first heard that phrase, but it's something that I really relate to and try to do. So thank you guys again, folks, for being here so much. I really appreciate it. And I will see you next time between Awesome and Disaster. Stay safe, wear a mask, get vaxxed and boosted, and stomp out fascism. Take care, everybody.